The blade pressed against Captain Eric Voss's throat before he fully registered the shimmer of the cloaked guard. He'd been scanning trade manifests in the docking bay of the Celestial Throne, humanity's first diplomatic vessel aboard the Azurian Empire's flagship, when 8 elite warriors materialized from nothing. "You will come," the lead guard said, her voice like ice cracking. Eric raised his hand slowly. 20 years in deep space hadn't prepared him for this. The Azurians were supposed to be peaceful. The trade summit was going well. His crew was still on their ship, unaware. "What's the charge?" he asked. "You do not ask questions of the Royal Guard." They marched him through corridors of liquid crystal that shifted from violet to deep crimson as they passed. Other aliens pressed themselves against walls, their chitinous faces turning away. Whatever this was, it was serious enough to make an entire station afraid. The throne room doors opened like a mouth. Inside, silence hung heavier than gravity. The chamber stretched impossibly vast, its ceiling lost in constellation patterns that moved like living things. At the center, on a dais of black stone, sat Queen Maharath. Her 6 arms rested on armrests carved from meteor fragments. Her crown wasn't metal but flowing light that shifted through colors Eric had no names for. To her right, trembling so violently her ceremonial chains rattled, stood a girl. 16, maybe 17 in human years. Princess Sevri. Eric had seen her once during the welcome ceremony, proud and silent beside her mother. Now she looked terrified. "You," the queen said, and her voice made the air vibrate. "Touch my daughter." Eric's mind raced. He'd been in the observation garden yesterday, alone, cataloging earth plants they'd brought as gifts. The princess had appeared, interested in the tomatoes. They'd talked for maybe 3 minutes. He'd shown her how to check if they were ripe. Their hands had brushed when she reached for one. "Your Majesty, I meant no disrespect. We were discussing agriculture." Silence. The queen didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Do you know what you have done? I spoke with your daughter about plants. You touched her skin." The queen's eyes, all 4 of them, fixed on him with the weight of worlds. "No male outside our bloodline has touched a royal daughter in 4,000 years. The penalty is death." Princess Sevri made a small sound, quickly stifled. Eric's heart hammered, but he kept his breathing steady. This was a misunderstanding. It had to be. Humans had been so careful, studying every protocol, every custom. "I didn't know," he said simply. "I apologize. Our culture's ignorance is not innocence." The queen's lower right hand moved in a gesture Eric couldn't interpret. 2 guards stepped forward with a crystal rod that hummed with lethal energy. "You will be executed before the noble houses as an example. No species, however new to our empire, may violate our most sacred laws." "Mother, please!" Sevri's voice cracked. "He didn't. You are dismissed, daughter." "But he wasn't. Go! Now!" The princess didn't move. Her hands clenched at her sides. In the throne room of the most powerful empire in 3 galaxies, this girl was choosing defiance. "Father!" Sevri said, and Eric realized with a start she wasn't speaking to the queen. Her eyes had fixed on a figure in the shadows behind the throne. "Father, this man is not normal." The figure stepped forward. Lord Consort Thane, the queen's bonded mate, a warrior who'd conquered 17 systems before retiring to the court. His reputation preceded him, brutal, efficient, uncompromising. He studied Eric with eyes like chips of amber. "Explain, daughter." "When I was in the garden," Sevri said, her trembling intensifying, "I stumbled. The root system from his world grows differently. I would have fallen into the thorns. He caught me. Just my arm. He didn't know. He couldn't have known. And when I thanked him, he stepped back immediately. He didn't try to touch me again. He didn't even look at me directly. He understood something was sacred even without knowing what. The silence that followed could have stopped time. Is this true? Lord Thane asked Eric. Yes. You saved her from injury? She would have been scratched. Maybe worse. I acted on instinct. Lord Thane walked down from the dais. He moved like water, fluid and inevitable. When he stood before Eric, they were eye to eye. The consort was tall for his species, nearly human height. Show me your hands. Eric extended them. Steady. No trembling. Lord Thane examined them, then looked at his daughter. And he touched only your arm? Yes, father. Above the wrist. He released me the instant I was stable. The consort turned to the queen. My love, this requires consideration. The law is absolute, Queen Maharay said, but something had shifted in her tone. Curiosity, perhaps, or calculation. The law, Lord Thane replied, was written when our enemies used touch as a weapon, when assassins would poison princesses through skin contact, when warfare was conducted through intimacy. He looked back at Eric. This human showed neither aggression nor desire. He showed duty. Duty? The queen's voice remained flat, but she leaned forward slightly. He preserved the princess's well-being without thought for himself. That is warrior behavior. That is the behavior we demand from our own royal guard. Eric barely breathed. He was watching something play out that he didn't fully understand, political currents running beneath words. The queen's crown flared brighter. You propose what, exactly? A test, Lord Thane said. If this human is truly, as my daughter suggests, abnormal in his instincts, trained in something we do not comprehend, then killing him would be wasteful. If he is merely a fool, the test will reveal it. What test? The trial of the guardian. Every guard in the room stiffened. Princess Severi's eyes went wide. That hasn't been invoked in centuries, the queen said. Precisely. Because no one has dared. If he survives, his actions are justified. If he fails, he dies anyway. Lord Thane smiled, and it wasn't kind. Either way, honor is satisfied. The queen studied Eric for a long moment. For eyes, each seeming to look into different aspects of his soul. Human, she said. Do you accept trial by the old ways? 7 challenges, each more deadly than the last, to prove your worthiness to have touched royal blood? Eric thought of his crew. Of Earth, 40 light-years away. Of the summit that could mean everything for humanity's place among the stars. He thought of a girl who'd been brave enough to speak truth to absolute power. I accept, he said. The queen's smile was like a knife's edge. Then, let us see exactly how abnormal you truly are. The doors sealed behind him with the finality of a tomb. They gave him 1 hour to prepare. No weapons. No armor. Just his standard-issue jumpsuit and boots. A guard escorted him to a holding chamber where water and something approximating food waited on a simple table. He didn't eat. Couldn't. The door opened and Princess Severi slipped through before the guard could stop her. She moved quickly, pressing something into his hand. A small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. What is this? Eric asked. My apology, she whispered. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know Father would demand the trial. No one has survived it in living memory. Why did you speak up then? Because you were kind. Because you didn't have to help me and you did. Because my mother would have killed you in minutes and I couldn't. Her voice broke. I couldn't let that happen without trying. Eric looked at the crystal. It was warm against his palm. What does this do? It's a memory stone. From my childhood. If you press it during the trials, it will show you one moment of truth. Only one. Use it wisely. She backed toward the door. Captain Voss? My father is watching you very carefully. He sees something in you. Don't waste it. Then she was gone. Eric stared at the crystal. A memory stone. In military training, they'd learned about psychological warfare, about intelligence gathering, about the importance of understanding your enemy. But they'd never prepared him for this, for alien politics, for trials designed to kill, for the weight of one species' hope resting on whether he could prove himself abnormal enough to deserve mercy. He pocketed the crystal as the guards returned. The arena wasn't what he expected. Instead of a coliseum, they led him to a chamber that looked organic, walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. The floor was soft, almost spongy. The ceiling vanished into darkness. Lord Thane stood on a platform overlooking the space. Beside him, rigid with tension, Princess Severi watched. The queen was absent. Apparently this trial required only the consort's judgment. First trial, Thane announced, his voice amplified somehow, echoing from every surface. The maze of mirrors. The walls began to shift. Surfaces erupted from the floor, each one reflective, creating corridors that branched and intersected in impossible geometries. Eric saw himself repeated 1,000 times, stretched and distorted. Find the exit before the maze collapses, Thane continued. You have 5 minutes. A tone sounded. Eric didn't hesitate. He ran. The mirrors showed him everything and nothing. Each corridor looked identical. Worse, they were moving, sliding past each other, reconfiguring constantly. He tried to mark his path by scuffing the floor with his boot heel, but within seconds the floor shifted and his markers disappeared. 2 minutes gone. He stopped running and closed his eyes. The maze was designed to confuse vision. So don't rely on vision. Eric focused on sound. The walls made different noises as they moved. Some scraped, some whispered, some hummed at different frequencies. He walked slowly, eyes still closed, listening to the symphony of movement. There. A gap in the pattern. A place where the walls didn't sing. He opened his eyes and saw it. A section of floor slightly different in texture, less worn. The exit would be in the least traveled area. It made sense. This wasn't about strength or speed. It was about perception. Eric navigated by sound and intuition, ignoring what his eyes told him. 45 seconds left. The walls began to compress, moving faster. He dropped to a crouch and scrambled through a narrowing passage just as the entire structure slammed shut behind him. He emerged into open space, breathing hard. Lord Thane's expression hadn't changed. Interesting. Second trial. The hunt. Darkness fell like a curtain. Eric heard movement in the black. Something large. Something with claws that scraped stone. The chamber had transformed. He smelled damp earth and something else. Blood? No. Ozone. Electricity. Survive for 3 minutes without being touched. Thane's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. The hunter is blind. It tracks by heartbeat. Eric's pulse hammered. Blind. Tracks by heartbeat. He couldn't slow his heart through will alone. Adrenaline was flooding his system. But he could confuse the signal. He ran toward where he'd heard the creature, then stopped abruptly and held his breath. The thing rushed past him, massive, all muscle and rage. It crashed into a wall, snarled, recalibrated. Eric breathed shallowly and moved perpendicular to its path. He found a wall and pressed his back against it, trying to merge his heartbeat with the vibrations of the arena itself. The creature stalked closer. He could feel its breath, hot and toxic. 90 seconds left. The creature lunged. Eric dropped flat. Claws passed through the space where his head had been, gouging the wall. He rolled, came up running, used the momentum to vault over something he couldn't see but felt, a barrier waist high. The hunter couldn't turn fast enough. It slammed into the barrier with a shriek of frustration. Eric kept moving, conserving energy, staying unpredictable. When the 3-minute tone sounded, he was still standing, untouched. Lights returned gradually. The hunter, some kind of bioengineered predator, was being led away by handlers in protective gear. It moved with the frustrated energy of a weapon denied its purpose. Lord Thane descended from his platform. He walked to where Eric stood, studied him. "You're military trained," Thane said. It wasn't a question. "Earth Naval Special Operations. 20 years. That explains the tactical thinking. It doesn't explain the restraint." Thane circled him slowly. "Both trials tested violence. You used none. The maze could have been broken through with sufficient force. The hunter could have been killed. I left 3 weapons hidden in the arena." "You found none of them." "You didn't tell me to kill it," Eric said. "You told me to survive." Something flickered in Thane's eyes. "Approval? Interest?" "Third trial," he said, "requires us to move." They walked through corridors that grew progressively older, the technology giving way to stone, then to something that looked carved from raw planetary crust. The air grew colder. Severi followed at a distance, her guards surrounding her. They reached a chamber lit by torches. Real fire. In the center sat a table with 2 chairs and, between them, a game board Eric didn't recognize. Pieces carved from bone and dark wood stood in complex formations. "Kethin," Thane explained, "our oldest strategic game. It is said to reveal the soul of the player. We will play 1 round. If you lose with honor, you pass. If you win through deception, you fail." They sat. Thane explained the rules quickly. The game was like chess merged with poker merged with something entirely alien. Pieces had hidden values. The board itself changed based on what was played. Victory came through either capturing the opponent's heart or building a pattern that achieved resonance. They began. Eric lost track of time. The game was beautiful in its complexity, vicious in its simplicity. Thane played like water, flowing, adaptive, always 3 moves ahead. Eric played like stone, solid, patient, waiting for the inevitable crack. He saw the pattern 20 moves in. Thane was offering him a victory. A path to resonance that looked genuine but would, if taken, reveal itself as a trap, not in the game, but in character. Taking it meant he valued winning over truth. Eric made a different move. He sacrificed his strongest piece to block his own path to easy victory. Thane paused, looked at the board, looked at Eric. "You see it," Thane said. "Yes. And you refuse it. The trial isn't about winning. It's about honor." They played 30 more moves. Eric lost gradually, strategically, making Thane work for every advantage. When his heart was finally captured, he set down his pieces with steady hands. "Why?" Thane asked. "Why what? Why refuse a gift? That path was offered deliberately. Taking it would have ended the trial. With me failing," Eric said. "You said it yourself. Deception fails. I'd rather lose honestly than win false." Thane stood. For the first time, he smiled fully. "You understand more than I anticipated. 4th trial. Follow." This chamber was different. Peaceful. A garden under artificial sky, plants from 100 worlds growing in careful harmony. In the center, a pool of water so still it looked like glass. "Retrieve what lies at the bottom," Thane said. "You have 1 breath." Eric looked into the pool. It was deep, far deeper than should fit in this space. At the bottom, maybe 30 meters down, something glowed. He stripped off his boots, dove. The water was warm, then cold, then something else entirely. It felt alive, aware. Eric kicked hard, conserving air, moving efficiently. 20 meters. 25. His lungs began to burn. The glowing object was a sphere, resting on sand that sparkled with embedded crystals. He grabbed it. The sphere was heavy. Impossibly heavy. He kicked upward and barely moved. Panic tried to claw up his throat. He forced it down, used his free hand to help, pulling himself upward along the pool's edge where underwater plants grew. His vision began to narrow. Air. Needed air. Princess Severi's face appeared above the water, distorted. She was screaming something he couldn't hear. Eric's hand broke the surface. Then his face. He gasped, choked, dragged himself onto the stone edge, still clutching the sphere. Lord Thane took the sphere from his grip. "Fifth trial follows immediately. Stand. Give him a moment," Severi protested. "A warrior's moment is now," Thane replied, but his tone wasn't unkind. "Stand, Captain." Eric stood on shaking legs. Water streamed from his jumpsuit. Thane handed him a blade. "Combat trial. Defeat me." The consort drew his own weapon, a curved blade that shimmered with energy. He moved into a stance that spoke of centuries of martial tradition. Eric looked at his own blade. Simple. Sharp. No technology. "I can't beat you," he said. "Then you fail." "No." Eric set the blade down. "You said defeat you. Not kill you. Not wound you. Defeat you. Explain the difference. A warrior of your skill. Fighting you with blades would be suicide. You've trained your whole life. I'd last maybe 10 seconds. Eric met Thane's gaze steadily. "But defeat doesn't require combat. It requires achieving your objective while preventing mine. Which is, you want to see if I'm a threat to your family, to your daughter. You want to know if my restraint is real or strategic." Eric gestured at the blade between them. "If I pick up that weapon, I prove I'm willing to fight my way through problems. If I refuse, I prove I understand when fighting is the wrong answer." The silence stretched. Severi had stopped breathing. Lord Thane lowered his blade. "You're either brilliant or a coward." "I'm a father," Eric said, and realized it was true even though his own daughter was light years away. "I know what you're doing. Testing if I see your daughter as a conquest or as someone worth protecting. The answer is neither. I saw her as a person who needed help. That's all." Thane sheathed his weapon. Sixth trial. They returned to the throne room. Queen Maharath waited, surrounded by the noble houses. Hundreds of aliens in formal dress, their voices falling silent as Eric entered. "Kneel," the queen commanded. Eric knelt. "You have passed 5 trials," she said. "The 6th is simple. Swear eternal loyalty to the Azurian Empire. Pledge your life and the lives of all humans to serve the throne. Do this, and you are forgiven." Eric's mind raced. This was it. The real test. Swear loyalty, save himself, but surrender humanity's independence. Refuse, and die, potentially taking the entire summit down with him. He looked at Princess Severi. She was crying silently, shaking her head in tiny movements. "I cannot," Eric said. Gasps rippled through the assembled nobles. "You refuse?" The queen's voice could have frozen stars. "I refuse. My loyalty belongs to my people first. I can swear friendship. I can swear cooperation. I can swear to work toward peace. But not submission. Never that. If you kill me for it, so be it. Humanity will find another way." The queen stood. Power radiated from her like heat. She descended the dais, each step measured, until she stood before Eric. "Look at me," she commanded. Eric looked up. All four eyes met his. "You truly believe this?" she asked. "With everything I am." The Queen turned to Lord Thane. "Your assessment? He's exactly what he appears to be," Thane said. "A warrior who understands that true strength serves something greater than itself. He's dangerous because he cannot be bought or broken. He's valuable for the same reason." Queen Maharath looked back at Eric. "Final trial. A question. Answer honestly and you live. Lie, and the guards will know." Asked, "If my daughter were in danger again, would you help her? Even knowing it could cost you everything?" Eric didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Why?" "Because it's right." The Queen's expression shifted. Not a smile, exactly. Something softer. "Rise, Captain Eric Voss of Earth." He stood. "You have passed the trial of the Guardian," she pronounced, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Not through strength or cunning, but through something my people had forgotten. Simple decency." She raised her hand and touched Eric's forehead with one finger. It burned cold, a sensation that sank into his skull like ice water. "I name you Friend of the Crown," she said. "Protected by royal decree. What was broken is mended. What was questioned is answered." She withdrew her hand. "The summit will continue. Humanity has proven itself worthy of consideration." The nobles erupted into discussion. Guards stood down. Princess Severi broke protocol and ran to her father, who embraced her. Eric stood in the center of it all, exhausted, soaked, and alive. Lord Thane approached him as the crowd dispersed. "The memory stone my daughter gave you. You never used it." Eric pulled the crystal from his pocket. It still glowed softly. "Didn't need to." "Why not?" "Because the truth was always simple. I helped someone who needed help. Adding complexity wouldn't have changed that." Thane took the crystal, studied it, then handed it back. "Keep it. You've earned more than survival today, Captain. You've earned respect. What happens now?" "Now? You return to your ship. You continue negotiations. And you remember that abnormal, in our empire, is the highest compliment we can offer." Thane clasped Eric's shoulder. "My daughter was right about you. You're not normal at all. You're better." 3 days later, the summit concluded with the first human-Azurian trade agreement in history. Eric stood on the deck of his ship, watching the Empire's flagship drift away through the view screen, its crystal structures catching starlight. His communications officer approached. "Sir? Message from Earth Command. They want a full report on the incident. Tell them it was a cultural misunderstanding. Resolve peacefully." "That's it?" "That's it." The officer left. Eric pulled the memory stone from his pocket and held it to the light. He'd never activated it, never seen what moment Princess Severi had considered important enough to share. He pressed it now. The crystal warmed and projected an image into the air, not a memory of Severi's childhood, but something recorded in the garden. He saw himself helping her with the tomato plant, saw the moment she'd stumbled, saw his hand reach out instinctively to steady her. But the image showed more than he'd realized. In that instant, his face had held no calculation, no hesitation, no awareness of protocol or politics. Just simple human concern for another person's well-being. The image faded. A message appeared in glowing script, translated by his ship's AI. "Thank you for teaching my family what we had forgotten. Some things transcend empire. Severi." Eric smiled and pocketed the crystal. Somewhere across the vast distance between stars, a girl who'd been brave enough to speak truth to power was probably returning to her studies, her training, her life as a princess. She'd never know that her courage had taught him something too, that being abnormal, being different from what was expected, was exactly what the universe needed. He turned toward the bridge. There was work to do, reports to file, a galaxy to explore. But first, he would send a message home to his own daughter, telling her about honor and trials and the strange truth that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be kind when no one expects it. Behind him, through the view screen, the Azurian flagship disappeared into the infinite dark, carrying with it the beginning of something neither species fully understood yet. Not alliance. Not submission. Something abnormal. Something like hope,